Hello and welcome to this class of Principles of Microeconomics. I am your teacher, Muhammad Nadeem Sarwar. Today we shall continue our discussion on consumer behavior. This is our fourth lecture in which we shall conclude this topic. In this lecture, we shall talk about consumption and saving decisions first, and then we shall discuss labor layer decisions by the households. So let's start with the lecture. Students, first we shall be discussing saving choices in static framework. We can define saving as the part of disposable income left after consumption. We save a part of our income and do not consume it in present time to consume it in later part of our life. Therefore, we can say that saving is actually future income which will be consumed in future. When we do not consume a part of our income and put it in our saving account, we in fact get interest against it. So higher the interest rate, higher will be the saving. That is, there is a positive relationship between saving and interest rate. So we can plot saving curve as this relationship also shows that consumption, on the other hand, is related with not only income but also with the interest rate. However, the relationship of consumption is positive with the income and negative with the interest rate. That is, on the higher interest rates, we will consume less because saving is now more attractive and consumption is now more costly. So, facing the scarcity of income, we shall consume it less and save it more to have higher income in future. Now, the second topic, which is the labor supply decisions. That is, how the households take the decisions of how much labor to supply. We first need to keep a few things in mind. First of those things is that we have total 24 hours of time in a day. We can allocate these 24 hours between work and leisure. A person may not like to work and might want to enjoy leisure whole 24 hours, but the work gives the person income which is used for consumption, and consumption gives him the positive utility. The leisure also provides a person with positive utility. However, there is a trade-off. The more hours you work, the more income you get, the more consumption you will be able to do, and you will get a positive utility for your consumption. But that means less leisure. And an extra hour of leisure means less hour of work, which will impact your income and your utility as well. Therefore, if you want to increase the leisure hours, you will have to sacrifice the working hour. In fact, you will have to sacrifice the income as the income is coming from work. So we can say that if real wage rate per hour is W, then extra R of layer means sacrifice of W units of income or equal worth of consumption. Therefore, the opportunity cost of layer is W, that is the real wage rate per hour. So we have two kinds of constraint. First constraint shows that we can only consume from our income earned by working at wage rate WR per hours. So if the number of hours in work are H, then our consumption could be equal to W into H, that is the net income earned from the working. Second constraint is that we have total 24 hours, so we can allocate these hours between layer hours represented by L and working hours represented by H. Rearranging it, we have H equal to 24 minus L, that is 24 hours of day minus layer hours. Replacing it in equation 1, we can have C equal to 24W minus WL. As we are representing consumption on y-axis and layer on x-axis, therefore the 24W is the intercept on y-axis and W is the slope of this curve. The negative sign shows that this line will be downward sloping. If wage rate increases, that increases our income, and so it also increases the consumption level. This also changes the slope of this constraint line. Here we assume that utility is derived from consumption and layer. Now the preferences between layer and consumption. These preferences are ranked by indifference curve, and here an indifference curve shows various combinations of consumption or work and layer hours which are equal in satisfaction. Therefore, the marginal rate of substitution, which is the slope of indifference curve, is equal to. Now the question is how many hours a person will like to work and how many hours a person will like to enjoy in layer. A rational person chooses working hours or layer hours keeping in view the real wage rate and the utility derived from consumption and layer. Therefore, the labor layer hours are chosen by a rational person where the budget line is tangent to highest possible indifference curve. In this diagram, this happens at point E. Therefore, the number of hours from origin up till point E1 are layer hours and remaining hours are working hours. We also know that at tangency, the slope of both curves should be equal. We know that the slope of indifference curve is marginal rate of substitution and the slope of budget line is real wage rate. Therefore, these two must be equal. Now let's study what will happen if the real wage rate changes. That is how the consumption and layer choices will affect from a change in real wage rate W. This is quite similar to the price effect that we studied in earlier lectures. We know that when real wage rate increases, the working hour increase because the work becomes more attractive and the cost of labor increases. This generates positively sloped labor supply curve. Let's see it from the diagram. Initially, the consumer is in equilibrium at point E1. His choice of labor and work hour can be seen from x-axis. Now let's assume that wage rate increased to W2. This resulted in rotation of. Now since the wage rate has increased, so each hour worked will yield more income. Therefore, the person will find working more attractive. On higher indifference curve, the tangency will be at point E2 where the layer hours will be reduced and working hours will increase. This effect can be broken down into income and substitution effect. Income effect is that higher wage rate means each hour of work yields more income. That is, if we choose to work as many hours as we were working before the price increase, still our income would have been higher. The substitution effect, however, says that at higher real wage rate, layer hours are more costly, so the consumer will substitute layer hours into more working hours. So from this we know that the labor supply curve should be positively related with wage rate. That is, at higher wage rate, the labor supply should increase. However, there might be a different case if there is too much increase in wage rate. That is, let's assume that now wages increased too much as represented by W prime. Since the wage rate is too higher now, so it is possible for person to work less hours and still earn very higher income. And we know that layer is a luxury commodity and luxury commodities demand increases as the income of the person increases. So therefore it is possible at a very higher wage rate that income effect overweight the substitution effect. That is, the person instead of working higher hours now substitute some of the working hours with layer hours. This results into backward bending labor supply curve. Actually, this represents why some people whose earning is very high go to vacations regularly, while the other persons who are working at low wage rate do not enjoy so many vacations. So connecting them with the labor supply curve, we can see that at point W1 the labor supply is represented by the number of hours total, that is 24, minus the number of hours spent in layer. When the wage rate increased, we can see that layer hours reduced and labor hours increased. Representing it on second graph we have. And when the wage rate increased too much, the working hours, instead of increasing, decreased. So graphing them, we have this. Connecting these points, we have backward bending labor supply curve, which shows that with an increase in real wage rate, the labor supply initially increases. But if real wage rate goes too high, then instead of an increase, there is a decrease in labor supply. That's all about this lecture. In the next lecture, we shall discuss the topic of production. We shall discuss its general concepts, long run and short run production in detail. Please consider liking and sharing the video. Give your feedback and post your questions in comments. Also consider subscribing the channel.